Kaushal, who's the regional CEO of Standard Chartered Bank for Africa and Middle East. He has over 31 years of banking experience in diverse markets and has been with Standard Chartered Bank for over 21 of those years. Holding senior roles across wholesale and consumer bank, Sunil has rich experience across the group's footprint, having served as the head of corporate banking in the UAE, head of originations and client coverage in Singapore, global head of small and medium enterprises and new ventures in Singapore, and chief executive officer of Standard Chartered Bank Taiwan Limited. For a scene setter, let's welcome to the podium Sunil Kaushal.
Good morning, everyone, and I would like to add to Karaoke's welcome once again to our esteemed panelists, to our board here in Kenya, and our clients. Now, this is a summit on Africa, and I can say with full confidence that Standard Chartered Bank is the largest international bank in Africa, absolutely committed in the face of many banks actually changing their strategy and outlook towards Africa. Africa, for us, is a very unique proposition when it comes to offering a network to our international corporates. It is also a market where we believe we are the largest, or we are the bridge between the largest capital flows that come from the West and the East into this market. We also are the largest facilitators of trade into this market. So we have, I think, pretty deep perspectives into the continent. But my job today is actually to set the context for the panel that will follow. I think the fact of the matter is, if you look at nominal terms, Africa contributes only 1%, Sub-Saharan Africa contributes only 1% to the global growth. If you look at purchasing power parity, it contributes 2%. Putting that into context, Asia contributes 63 to 64%. That's the dimension you've got to keep in mind. So that's a huge gap. That's a huge gap. Africa predominantly has been an exporter of commodities. Manufacturing has picked up, but it remains a pretty insignificant contributor to local economies. That's a fact. If you look at Sub-Saharan Africa, the overall installed capacity of power, if you take a metric for infrastructure, is around 66,000 megawatts. If you put that in, of which a quarter is non-functional. If you put that in the context of a country, Sub-Saharan Africa population is pretty close to 1 billion. If you compare it to a market like India, it's 1.3 billion. I'm not talking about the US or China, I'm talking about India. It has an installed capacity of 360,000 megawatts. So you can put again the comparison that is there. So a lot needs to be done in terms of bridging the infrastructure gap. Annual estimates of infrastructure investments in Africa are anywhere from 100 to 130 billion dollars, of which roughly 30 to 40% are only met. So the gap keeps widening every year. That's the current state. Now the question comes up is, we're talking about sustainable finance. We're talking about Africa. Why do we need to get it right? I think that's a very important question. Why do we need to get it right in Africa? If you start looking at just the surface area that you need to address from a global perspective, Africa accounts for the US, China, Europe, and India combined. So you're addressing a big part of the world. You're not addressing it in a small city-state from where I come, Singapore. You're addressing it for a large part of the world. You're addressing the issue for a continent which has the future or the prospect to become the breadbasket of the world. It has the largest land mass for arable land. So it is extremely critical. It has got the most compelling demographics in the world. It depends what time frame you take. But Africa is going to drive the population growth of the world, while most of the rest of the world is going to age and depend on Africa for its labor and for its manufacturing capabilities. So we've got to really get it right, because the scale is so huge that you've got to get it right in terms of the investment. Then the question comes in terms of sustainable investment. So we know the case for the investment. And I can say Bronwyn has been with us in Davos, and this January I thought the penny dropped. The penny dropped in terms of the whole focus. Yes, we spoke about the fourth industrial revolution and how technology is changing the world, but the focus shifted towards sustainable investment, the triple P bottom line: planet, people, and profits. The shift was towards impact investing. So there is a wall of capital that is available for investment, that is looking at certain criteria to be satisfied for them to put in a sustainable form. And the demand is there in this continent to absorb that capital. So when we sit today and have a discussion, I think we should be focusing on some of the issues that I spoke about, but also ask ourselves, what is the role that the government has to play to make this happen? What is the role the private sector has to play to make this happen? What role do banks like ourselves play, and the development financial institutions and the whole cohort of financial services industries plays? And if we are able to address some of these questions, I think we'll gain a lot from this summit. So we look forward to your active engagement. We'll have a Q&A session at the end. But thank you once again for taking the time to attend. Thank you.